ES Audio.
This song and the intro to Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi are about the only things I can play on a piano. Like a few people my age, which is very young, I learned it after seeing Tom Hanks and Robert Loggia bounce about on that giant piano at the legendary New York toy store FAO Schwarz in the movie Big. Do you know what else is big in New York? The British toy company, Marvin's Magic.
FAO Schwarz was great for us, a small world, even in those days, and I'm sure they would have been over and seen success at Hamleys and Harrods and Selfridges where we had products. But also, there's a thing about in America, they like the English thing and it has a sort of cachet about it.
It's been 35 years since Marvin Berglas founded the company that's now in 60 markets worldwide. An incredible trick for anyone. Never underestimate the power of magic.
I just had a flair for it. I just enjoyed it, got into it, and realised that this is powerful. What you can do with magic, whether it got you to the front of a queue in a nightclub or meeting people or whatever, and having fun. It was just a great thing. So, am I a magician or am I a businessman? I like to think as both, and I think it's a really lovely hat to be wearing.
I'm David Marsland, and Marvin's going to be appearing at the Evening Standard's SME Expo, along with people like Deborah Meaden, Levi Roots, Charlie Mullins, and loads of others. It's being held at the XL in London on April 25th and 26th. Find out more at smexpo.co.uk. But before he takes to the stage, let's meet Marvin at his office in Marylebone, where I want to know how he broke the United States.
How do we get there? Well, when we had success in London first with our demonstration business, which is how it all started out really, in other words, showing the products off in a really good way, in a great environment, we thought, well, there must be some other stores like this around the world, and we tried to understand where they were, and obviously FAO Schwarz was a big one, and so we targeted them first, but they've changed ownership and management. Lots of things have happened since then, but they reopened a few years back in Rockefeller Plaza, and retail entertainment, as it's called, which is sort of in-store theatre, is very big. It separates them from the old sort of supermarkets and people who just pile it high and products and sell it cheap. They wanted to concentrate on like experiential shopping. So it was like an event to take the kids there and witness the magicians and stuff. And so we're good at that. We've been doing it for a long time, and they've seen that and they like us, and we've got a huge area there. Now we look after all of their demonstrations.
So I guess there must have been a point, probably in fairly recent history, when stores like FAO Schwarz, like Harrods, realized that people were doing online shopping. So we've got to get people back into the store themselves. Yeah. And were you just standing there waiting? Or did you go, do you know what, we can help you out with this?
Well, think about it. We were actually doing this instinctively, when we first started. This is our 35th year now. I can't believe that, 35 years. So when we did it, we knew no better. We're just enthusiastic and passionate about our products and opportunities to show them off. And with magic, it's a sort of theatrical bit of showmanship required to show it off, and it just always gathered a lot of attention, and then the stores realized, well, hold on, this is good, because it's not just selling a lot of product, but it's actually bringing in an attraction. But doing this demonstration type of business is actually quite complicated, because the sort of people that are good at demonstrating and being theatrical tend to be extrovert people who maybe aren't the best at getting there first thing in the morning and and all the things you need to do sort of to keep down a 9 to 5 job. And as retail became not 9 to 5, it was 10 to 10 often, and it was huge. We had to get a whole pool of people, and rather than just magicians who were magnets that come to us, we actually went out and got sort of actors who were often unemployed and trained them between auditions to be able to work and learn entertaining sales presentations. It's not dissimilar to, let's say, when you go to see a comedian in a nightclub. You make your opinion about him in the first few seconds he walks on. Has he got the audience in the first few seconds? And then you like him or you don't like him, and then you applaud. Well, it's the same in store. There's so much going on. They've got a busy days getting there. if the guy or girl is good demonstrator, you've got your attention, it's entertaining to watch, and your applause is if you trust them enough that you actually want to take it home and buy it. That's the applause. And so it's a very interesting dynamic.
So I'd assumed that the people you were hiring were illusionists, were magicians, were entertainers. But if they're not, then I wonder if that's actually quite a good way to test your product. So a lot of these Marvin's Magic sets are aimed at children. So they're impressive illusions, but they should be relatively easy to do, a lot of them. So are you able to look at, is that working? If you can bring someone in with no magic background and get them to perform it in a really kind of entertaining way.
We dealt with what we call professional magic made easy. So if you like, it's almost the painting by numbers of magic. There was a sort of gimmick or something that helped you do it so you could concentrate on the presentation and your personality. And magic is really good like that because it actually does make shy kids more confident, and it helps on presentational skills and that type of thing. So it was easy to actually identify that and train people to do that. And it was probably better to get actors to do that, because sometimes when you got magicians, they're so steeped in their own things, they're wanting to impress, and then sort of mums would leave their kids and say, well, I'll be back in half an hour, you watch the magician, which ain't too good for sales, really.
Was the US the first place you expanded to outside of the UK market?
Yes, we actually, after 2 or 3 years of doing demonstration business, we went to some trade fairs firstly. And one of the trade fairs was an international trade fair in Germany, in Nuremberg, called the Spielwarenmesse.
Yeah, it's very famous. That's where lots of the really big toy makers go. Yes.
Yeah, it's a very famous area for toys because of the wood that was made for toys in that area. But we went there, even though we were quite naive and inexperienced at the time, because of the showmanship aspect, and we were hugely busy with people wanting to see. But we realized, it took us a year or two to realize that the people watching might have been other exhibitors, the security guard, the cleaning lady. It wasn't necessarily all your customers, So it was a learning curve. And we'd pick up thousands of business cards and stuff, but actually converting that into business was quite complex, really, and not that practical. So an English-speaking territory like FAO Schwarz was great for us. Obviously, it's a lot easier. And
did they know the Marvin's Magic product before you took it to them? I mean, who came to who first?
It's hard to think back actually because it's such a long time ago, because we have dealt with them for many years now. But I would imagine they've done comparative shopping. It's a small world, even in those days, and I'm sure they would have been over and seen success at Hamleys and Harrods and Selfridges where we had products. But also, there's a thing about in America, they like the English thing, and it has a sort of cachet about it. So that actually didn't do us any harm at all, especially as it was quality products,
Yeah, and of course, magic has a home in England, doesn't it? Very much so. It's huge in the States, massive in Hollywood. Famous castle where all the magicians hang out, but magic has a traditional home right here in England. Did that work? Does that work internationally? Can you make that part of the brand?
Do you know, we did. We made it part of the brand. We push on the English side of things, and especially when we expanded. We're now in 60 odd countries, more than 60 countries. The majority is in the States and the UK, but we have, we're in every territory you can think of. Crazy. And sometimes you get a market when now our brand is known, somebody would come to you and let's say it might be from Hungary and say, I want to put this there. Well, it's a bit complicated, but we have to work it out and obviously translate the packaging and the instructions, and there's minimum orders required. So there's costs involved in all that type of thing.
Was that unexpectedly big for you to do that? I mean, how complex is that kind of procedure? And did you realize that when you went into this?
No, you don't. When you first start out, you want to cast your net as big as possible. You don't really know all the pitfalls or the local issues that you may have. But it would tend to be the enthusiasm and perseverance from the customer itself would determine how easy the door is to open or not. For example, I remember we had an entrepreneurial person in Holland who was selling our stuff into banks, or someone in Sweden who was selling a product into petrol stations. It's just really crazy things. But if the order was big enough, we could do it. That was the point. The trouble is, let's just say, we have a product a Marvin's Magic box of tricks might have 300 tricks in it, right? So the instructions already are pretty big. Now, if you had to translate that speculatively into, let's say, 8 or 10 languages, you're putting a brick in there of which is wasted. So, you probably have to have a territory that was keen enough to go for it, probably have an order actually. So you either work directly with the customers themselves, or you might get a distributor. But when you get a distributor, there's lots of margin you're giving away, of course, and it's much harder to make it work.
Can that kind of issue, though, be resolved with technology today? Because, I mean, when you look at a Marvin's Magic set, you've got tricks that works with iPhones, for example. So can you put your instructions onto an iPhone and have all those translations there, save you money, save you shipping? Yeah. Does that work for you, or is that something you can look at?
It's something we definitely are doing in the last few years a lot more, and we have a Marvin's Magic app, which in every instruction booklet we have a QR code, and you would go into the secret QR code and it would now automatically download the videos that we've made. So it's a lot easier for kids to learn, stop, rewind, pause, and also in different languages. That's really opened the door for us as we've expanded into Europe in particular.
And after you broke the US, like the Beatles,
yeah,
did everything else just kind of cascade internationally, or was it hard work from getting it? To break the States is, that's a great thing to say. But, the reality is we work with a handful of companies really, really well, rather than in the past, lots badly. And I think that's really a good thing. We work very closely with, for example, just on a huge Costco global project, and that's gone into all the stores there. And that's a massive order for us. That was a big. That's huge.
Yeah, it was huge, and it's just really great to see you branding in all those sort of places and locations. We're doing really well with Amazon out there as well. So those 3 accounts alone are really great. Whereas in the past, they have something called Mama and Papa stores, which are sort of independently run toy gift educational stores, and the logistics of lots of small orders of how you get the goods to them, how it works, how they pay, etc. It was very complex and probably not really the best usage of our time. And I think that's really important to actually analyze what your market is and what's the best market for you and what would work.
And when you're in all of these different places, 60 countries around the world, it must be hundreds, thousands of places that Marvin's Magic must be appearing. For want of a better word, how do you kind of protect the brand? Because when you hand it over, you're giving it to all of these different shops, different stores. How do you look after the Marvin's Magic brand?
Yeah, we have we work very hard on that for our demonstration accounts. But having said that, there's so few demonstration accounts around the world that we soon realized that demonstration is obviously a very effective way of selling, but there's not many locations that can sustain the cost of having people there standing there all the time demonstrating, because you need a captive or changing audience of quite probably well-to-do people who are able to sort of pay the premium prices compared to a value thing. So there's, we only have that in a handful of locations. But what we learned, demonstrations one side of our business, the other side was trade business, and took us 2 or 3, 4 years. Let's just say we had a magician selling a special pack of cards he was selling all day long, every day. Great. He's doing a great job in somewhere like Hamleys, etc. But then we had, I think it was Boots, the chemist there, men's gift department, approached us in about years and years ago and said, "Oh, this is great. Can we have this in all our stores for a sort of men's gift product?" And they just gave us an order, which was the equivalent of probably a year's worth of demonstration. And that was a real light bulb moment for us, because, that was amazing. They've got 600 stores or however many, and they could just put, even if it was a few dozen pieces in each store for Christmas, that was big. So we had to concentrate on how do we get more and more stores to do that, and therefore the packaging now had to communicate what the demonstrator used to do, or it had to be of a price point that was an impulse buy, or it had to be something, a little cachet about it to make it a bit different.
Okay, quick magic trick. Think of a number between 1 and 10. Now multiply that by 9. Done that? Multiplying by 9 is pretty hard. Now, from that new number, add the first and second digits together. And if you went lowball, and I don't blame you, and only have a single digit, add 0. Now, add 4. And while you figure out how I know the number you have is 13, have a listen to some adverts. I'd also say that hitting the follow button on your podcast provider will give you the answer, but it won't. It will, though, mean you never miss an episode of How to Be a CEO, so do it anyway. Back after these.
Going back 35 years ago, when you, I guess, first designed or set out to do this, did you see yourself in 60 countries? Did you see Marvin's Magic being the household name that it is?
I was always hoping, and I sort of did. Funny enough, I was thinking back that when I was a kid riding my bike, maybe 9, 10 years old, I actually envisaged something like this. I don't know what it was, but I thought it'd be cool. But it's actually, if you've got passion in something, I think it didn't happen overnight. We worked very hard. Lots of things have happened, and in all fairness, David, I'm really proud of what we've achieved. That we've been encouraging literally millions of kids around the world into magic, which is a great hobby. And did I imagine? I was hoping, but it is actually organic. It's happened. One opportunity leads to another, and I think if you're good and you're reliable, you're honest, you're hardworking, people see that and they want to associate with you. As opposed, if you're too desperate, pushing, and it's no good looking for the fast buck in this world. Especially with all the compliance and all the additional costs and things you have to do. We're here for the long game.
Was there an opportunity way back where you could go, that's where everything made the difference, that was the turning point for this company?
There was 2 or 3 things that I couldn't pinpoint. Obviously the first being the launch in the big store groups, which was great. The second was when TV shopping became very big.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're going back now 22, 23 years, and the likes of QVC was just starting in the UK, and they came to us and said, look, if we give you a 2-hour show, what do you think? And we did. We put our stuff. We put on a full-on magic show selling our products, but it got a lot of new names. A lot of people started to watch, and they liked that, and we sold very well. And as a result of that, QVC in America at that stage was huge. It was going to 63 million homes. So we actually earned the opportunity to have 2 one-hour shows, Marvin's Magic with Marvin Berglas in Philadelphia, the largest live studios out there. That was quite an experience because it was full on, and it sounds very exciting, and the numbers were potentially huge, but the risk factor was also enormous because it was pretty much sale or return, and we had to label each product, get it all out there, and if it didn't work, it didn't sell, it was coming back. And that's a long way to send products there and back. So a lot was on the line. That was a big risk for us, but thankfully it did sell. And one of the products in particular sold ridiculously well. It was a magic drawing board, which is a age-old product which we've been selling, and I think they bought something like 8,000 units for the first show in November and 10,000 for the second show in December, and I managed to sell all 18,000 in 4 minutes.
That was something a good day.
I mean, it was, and there was like 1,000 people on the switchboard taking the orders. They said, "This is great. This is, even by our numbers, this is really good." Obviously, it was a visual product. It had a demonstration, a start, middle, and finish. And so they said, "How quickly can you get some more?" And a container load was about 36,000 of these things. And a few weeks later, we got them in there, and I sold them in the weekend. And 54,000 a few weeks later. My record was 93,000 units in a weekend, which was unbelievable. And I look back and think, that was incredible. But as a result of that, we did a partnership with them. They came to us and said, this is great. And they called it Marvin's Magic. And they did what they called DRTV, direct response TV commercials, where they put on, quite cheesy sort of adverts. Do you want to, that type of thing. Phone this number, And as a result, our brand became quite big from then onwards, and it was known, in the States really. So that helped us open a few doors. Clearly.
What's your biggest seller? What's the biggest seller of all time? And is it still selling?
Well, I think those numbers are hard to beat. They were incredible because we sold millions of those items. As I said, this stuff with Costco is a lovely big Marvin's Magic Ultimate set, and we, literally tens, hundreds of thousands. It's a big item. But generally, our staple sellers tend to be Magic Made Easy box of tricks, which is at a price point and an introduction into magic. When we grew the brand, it wasn't just kids magic. We saw that was obviously the niche perhaps between a certain age, but then we also did executive magic, how to make money appear in front of your bank manager, or how to tear up a contract in the middle of a meeting or something. So it was it was a fun thing because magic is a power. It gives it gives you confidence. If you're in a meeting or a presentation, everyone's had a magic set at least once in their life. And it's our job to make sure that magic set is as good as possible with clear instructions so the kid can be the star of the show, get the playground power, impress his family, friends, and then hopefully go on to the next one or want to get the next thing. And that's how we built it up. And glad to say that a lot of our customers became our demonstrators in stores and later became successful people in show business, over the years. As we say, it's got a nostalgic feel now. Second generation, the people who had it as kids now are buying it for their kids, which is great.
Yeah, that must be quite nice because I guess there's some kind of affection there with the brand itself, isn't there? This is the set I had when I was 8. Here's my son, here's my daughter. I'm going to buy them a magic set and we're going to do that. Are any of the tricks the same? Can people go back and go, this is the one I did?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously, we always come out with new stuff as well and trying to refresh and mix some classics with some new technology stuff. But ultimately, magic is a traditional art form. There's things that go back hundreds of years. In Hieronymus Bosch, there's a picture of cups and balls being done, in a festival and stuff. So that's a staple in a lot of our magic sets. It's good to tip the hat to some of the past, but we also do try to bring it bang up to date. For example, the app means that not only can you use the product as it's supposed to be used, but if you use it in conjunction with your iPhone now, it does something further, maybe augmented reality or things of, unbelievable things like that.
Yeah, so you can go back to the past, but there's going to be something new, there's going to be something surprising for you as well. And I guess that's important when you're trying to evolve a product to keep it fresh. It's
like absolutely important.
I mean, we were talking about the origins of Marvin's Magic, and you always had this idea of there being, an international presence there. But, I mean, you'd been doing magic yourself for a long time. Your family was in magic, wasn't it? Are you a businessman or a magician, Marvin? In your heart of hearts, how do you introduce yourself to people?
I'm both. I'm a magician and entrepreneur. I think that's basically what they say. I'm proud to say that. I mean, my father, David Berglas, who's 96 now, was the first TV magician to have his own series back in the 50s and 60s. People might remember Paul Daniels, and before that we'll remember David Nixon, some of the older people, and before that was my dad. And then he worked doing some incredible stuff, and he's in football parlance, he's the Bobby Charlton of magic. He's looked up to by so many people, and even all the contemporaries of today think he's a legend. But actually, I wasn't that interested in magic when I was younger. Because I was steeped in that world, but you tend to rebel against what your family does, and it didn't really strike a chord until a lot later on. When I saw and had a few tricks, I actually went to a convention in Lyon with my dad last minute when I was at school, about 16, to help him out on something, and I just had a flair for it. I just enjoyed it, got into it, and realized that this is powerful, what you can do with magic. And whether it got you to the front of a queue in a nightclub or meeting people or whatever and having fun, it was just a great thing. So I got more and more into it, was self-taught on the type of commercial magic that I do personally, and I do perform still in some very interesting facets all around the world, which is great. But am I a magician or am I a businessman? I like to think as both, and I think it's a really lovely hat to be wearing.
Okay, slightly different way of asking a similar question then. What's better, signing a huge deal with FAO Schwarz or seeing a 6-year-old with a magic wand?
Whose magic wand is it?
It's yours, obviously.
I'd say seriously, if I had any legacy at all, it would be that we've encouraged the magicians of tomorrow. So that I'm really the most proud of that.
That was Marvin Berglas from Marvin's Magic. If you enjoyed that, remember he's appearing at the SME Expo in April. Go to smexpo.co.uk for more info. How to Be a CEO is taking a break for Christmas. We'll be back in January. Why not take a listen to the back catalogue while we're away? See you after the new year.